Hey guys, Mr. Tweet here. Right in this video, I'm going to go over the Electoral College briefly, and then maybe proportional representation system briefly for you guys. You already watched the video, so you probably have most of the pieces just kind of putting together for you. Um, with the Electoral College, um, essentially what you have is every state has a chunk of electoral college votes that they're given. So if you're a state with very few people, you have one for your representatives, and then you have two for your senators. So the smallest states have three, and the largest states end up with a lot more because they have many more times the population. However, you'll notice like I think one of the videos compared like California to Wyoming, and California has like 50 times more people, but we don't get 50 times more electoral college votes, which is kind of a ripoff. Um, the other way that California is screwed by the electoral college is that because we're not a battleground state. Remember that those swing states or the battleground states, they have to have two things to be like a key swing state or a battleground state. They have to have a significant amount of electoral college votes, so not three, probably at least probably like eight or more, and it has to be close. And the most important thing there is being close. That if the race is close, if the polls are close, then presidents are gonna spend a lot of attention on those states. But if it's not close, and if it's not significant, then presidential candidates don't really care. So for instance, you could look at like a state like Florida versus a state like California. Trump and Biden are going to spend probably tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe even in Florida. They're not going to spend anything in California to try to win. They're also not going to worry about trying to make California voters happy because they already know how California is going to go. So what that means is that a state like California, presidents don't really care about whether they make Californians happy or not. So like when the Trump tax cut of 2017 was passed, it really screwed over people in California. And Trump was basically like, I don't care. They're not going to vote for me. So I don't care if they get screwed over. A president would never do that to a state like Florida or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Ohio. Now, they might do it to an Idaho or a Utah because everybody knows which way those states are going to go. So they wouldn't be worried about, screwing over those states either. But no president would do anything like what happened a few years ago, to just to basically say like we don't care if the people of a certain state are going to get screwed, because they're not going to vote for us anyways. We know how that election's going to go, so we're not worried. So like if you're from Pennsylvania is a swing state, significant number of electoral college votes, and it's very close. Presidents are going to spend 4 years trying to make those people happy. They're going to spend 4 years trying to make the people of Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin happy. They don't care about the people of Texas or California, because it's not close. So that's one of the bummers of the electoral college system, is that some states end up having more influence on the federal government than other states. And we happen to live in one where we don't have a lot of influence. I did show you guys one kind of video that went over the proportional representation system, or the multi something something something. Just to give you a general idea of what proportional representation is. In some countries, they use a system called PR, or proportional representation. And basically what you do is when you go to vote, you don't necessarily vote for a candidate, you more vote for the party of maybe the candidate that you like, or you vote for the party that you want. And then based on the percentage of votes that are given there, that's how many seats they get in the national legislature or Congress. So like, in the United States, we use winner take all elections. So like, if you're California, you got over 50 electoral college votes. It doesn't matter if like you win by 100 votes or you win by 1,000,000 votes, you get them all. Or a state like Florida. Florida has think Florida has like 25 or so electoral college votes. In the 2000 election, when it was Gore and Bush, that election was divided by like 300 votes out of like over 3 million ballots cast, I think, or no, over 6 million ballots cast. It was divided by 300 votes. And that made the difference between Bush getting all 25 electoral college votes, Gore gets none, allows Bush to win the election, because we use a winner take all system. What they do in other countries with proportional representation is they don't actually have an election for their executive branch. They don't have an election for their like prime minister or their president in some countries. What they do instead is they use a proportional representation system. So everybody in the country votes. They vote based on which party they want, and then based on the percentage of votes for those parties, then they get to pick a certain number of people to serve in their legislature, in their parliament, or whatever it's called. Now, then the first job of the legislature is they need to elect who their chancellor or their prime minister or who their president is going to be. So the Congress actually picks who the president is going to be. And it might sound like it is like you'd have a really one-sided government, but it actually does the opposite, because in those countries, if you have a smaller party like the Green Party or the Libertarian Party or whatever party that you want to create, the No Tax Party or whatever it is that you want, in order to get some representatives, all you need to do is you just need to convince, it depends on the country, but usually the threshold is around 4 or 5%. So if you get 5% of the country to vote for a third party, then they get 5% of the seats in Congress or Parliament or whatever it's called. And what ends up happening is people end up viewing voting for a third party. They don't view it as throwing their vote away. They view it as a legitimate option. And so in those countries, you tend to get, instead of just 2 political parties, you tend to get 3 and then 4 and maybe even 5 political parties. So you have multiple political parties. None of them get 50% of the seats in Congress. So none of them can just pick who they want the leader to be. What they end up doing instead is they have to make what's called a coalition. So then you would have you might have, the Republicans and the, Christian Democrats and the libertarians. They might have to come together and agree to vote together. But in order to agree to vote together, those smaller parties get to go to the bigger party and say, like, hey, if you want us on your side, you need to give us some say in government. So maybe like the prime minister will be from the main party, but they'll say like, but look, the Department of Education has to be run by this person, or we want the Department of Energy to come from our party, or we want, something very significant. Secretary of State is going to be whatever their real concern is. But it's not just the people, it's the policies that they negotiate as well. So they'll say like, look, if you want us to support you in this coalition government, that's fine. But in return, you have to adopt some of our policies and you have to negotiate with us. So it becomes like a trade or a deal. So anyways, that's kind of the proportional representation system. Very different from what we have in the United States. In some ways, it makes government more efficient because the Congress and the president, or the legislature and the executive, they are teamed up together. So you don't have necessarily the same checks and balances that way. On the other hand, you have more influence by more political parties, so people feel like they can vote more for candidates that are closer to them or represent them, and then they work together to kind of compromise in the national government. So anyways, that's that. I'll see you guys in a minute for your assignment, and peace.